Hey, what is up, everyone? It is your girl, Liv. You are currently listening or watching the Orange Blossom Special Show. Make sure you hit that follow or subscribe button wherever you're at. Today, we're going to be talking about my favorite app, TikTok, and the TikTok ban. Because everyone wants to have their opinion on whether or not they think TikTok is going to get banned, whether it's going to stay. I think the most hilarious thing is people flocking to Red Note, though, which is, it's not the actual Chinese version of TikTok, but Red Note, it's basically accumulation of Pinterest and TikTok. Red Note is how Lemonade should actually be operating. Everyone has gone to Lemonade, but no one, I feel really posts on Lemonade. So it's interesting in that moment. And basically, if you have no idea how these apps work, essentially you have something, it's called an algorithm, that is owned and operated by TikTok. And that determines how posts, videos, things get put out. And so the algorithm is part of the app. And so in the debate of whether TikTok would sell or not, it's basically selling the technology side. And TikTok has basically doubled down saying that they're not going to sell to an American company. And it is interesting how things have kind of gotten to this point. And it's also interesting how it was a majority of the Democratic leaders who voted to ban TikTok, which also is an interesting take. And again, you're allowed to have your opinion on the internet. I am not here to tell you what you should or shouldn't believe. I'm not here to tell you who you should or shouldn't vote for. I'm just spitting the facts. And a lot of these Democratic lawmakers posted they said, oh, we're going to vote for it even though we don't think the ban's going to happen. And now we're here. So I think that there's a lot of things that are going on. Personally speaking, I think that there are going to be backdoor conversations that are going to be had, and I don't think TikTok is going to get banned. Again, I am willing to admit that I can be wrong. Okay? You can correct me. I'm here for open opinions. I'm here for open arguments. I'm here for your oral argument. You can give me your opinion all you want. I think though that there's been a lot of fear mongering though going on in terms of banning TikTok, and I'm here posting on my podcast and also on my YouTube channel if you are watching this on YouTube. And I think part of it is we're in a digital age, and the other aspect of it too is just data is now currency. Companies, they want your data because that is a form of payment for them. Data is knowledge, and in marketing, there's so many things that companies do to get your data. The latest App Store update, Apple put AI technology on all the apps that if you have recently updated your iPhone and you don't want them to be getting your data for that, you have to manually go in and deselect your approval for every single app on your phone. I have yet to update my iPhone, by the way, because of this. And so it is interesting in this whole TikTok argument over security, how American companies can essentially do whatever they want with your data and there's zero repercussions. And I understand that TikTok is a foreign entity, but it's one of those things where people just honestly, the millennials, the Gen Z, at this point, they don't care. And I think that isn't a conversation that older generations, if you're watching this, are ready to have or want to have, because a lot of them, or a lot of people, it's like data apps technology is very unfamiliar. And so it's like, how do you even explain the rabbit hole of how your data is secured, how your data is protected? And I understand, you know, the American government and the Chinese government typically don't get along, but people are now going on the Chinese version of the app that America or the US government wanted to ban, and essentially doubling down, saying, we have seen American companies literally steal our own data and they can sell it to these foreign companies, and an app in which our data is actually more secure is being taken out. And so I think that's always an interesting take. And I just feel like the world right now, everything is tense, everything is heightened. It seems like there's a new conflict that goes on every day. And Ron Swanson is like, don't trust the government, kids. And again, everyone is able to have their own opinion. And I feel like I have to keep on saying that. But the thing, as like, I got my master's in marketing, there's a couple key takeaways that I want people to, I guess, understand or be aware of, or just maybe think about when it comes to how these decisions are essentially going to be made. The first one being is that the U.S. Supreme Court is the one who is going to rule on this. It's not your senator. It's not your marketing agency. The people who are going to make this decision are Supreme Court leaders. And I think they're going to look at this from a couple of different angles. I personally think from a business standpoint, I do not think TikTok is going to get banned. I think that they are going to scram and come up with something else, especially if they are aware that RedNote has now become the number one social media app, and RedNote is the Chinese version, and it's taken them how many months to even like get the ban to the Supreme Court. That being said, things that my dad would always say, everything in life comes down to three things. Comes down to money, power, and resources. And so if we look at the TikTok ban based off of those three aspects alone, the resources is our data. The power is who is control, and the money is how much money is being generated on this app. I could not foresee a economy that is not entrepreneurial, free trade, democracy. Oh my gosh. I do not foresee a consumeristic based economy throwing $30 billion away. And again, everyone wants to fearmonger. Again, I could be completely wrong about this TikTok thing by the time hopefully this episode gets posted. Okay. Again, I am willing to fully admit that I could be completely wrong on the TikTok ban. So when we are looking at the scope of the Supreme Court, their decisions, and the way in which this decision could be made, there are a couple of plausible outcomes. The first outcome is the Supreme Court can decide this isn't within our scope to make a decision this large. They can send it back down to the lower courts for more discovery and come back and revisit it, and either that would postpone the technical ban on TikTok, or they can just say point blank period, there's a third of Americans on this app, this isn't something that should be banned, and move forward. There is a potential sale going on where TikTok, they said they wouldn't sell. They may sell part of the app or something within the scopes of the app. So American companies have some type of influence in it, even though I think that option is incredibly high likely. And there's also another bill currently being introduced that may get passed this week that could prolong the ban for another 270 something days. But the aspect that I think our leaders and people who are taking into consideration the TikTok ban, I think they're also going to look at it, one, from an economic perspective. There's too much money being made on this app for them to just completely dismantle it. And I think part of it is you have other like foreign businesses that are also on this app making money in the American market. And I think you have to ask yourself, and I think the people making these decisions that are going to ask themselves are going to be, well, what is this outcome going to mean for US trade and for US partnerships if we do decide to ban this app? Um, Americans, from my knowledge, are the only ones right now who, if you are a digital creator, can make money off of the app. But again, Trump's presidency and his win, a huge percentage of those votes did come from people on this app. And so I have reason to believe that there are other conversations that are going to happen, and something in the midnight hour is going to come out, and TikTok is going to at least remain interim until Trump figures something out in terms of what he wants to do with it. And history would tell us that money talks and shit walks. And I understand we want to have a plan of action. I fully understand you, if you are in marketing, if you are a business company, if you are making a lot of money on TikTok or the TikTok shop, I understand that you want to have set plans in place for what is the next steps if this app gets banned. But I also think it is equally important to consider the law, what the law says, how our government tends to rule on things, and going back historically. I mean, I think this is like the first thing like this that has ever happened, but I think if we've learned anything from like the past elections and decisions that are made within the US law and how things tend to be ruled out, I do not foresee there being a reason why the ban has gone this far because of the Israeli-Palestine conflict. I think that is the thing that kind of really triggered the we need to ban the app. But I think if you put that conflict aside, it's now to the point where people are scrambling because they didn't think it would get this far, or that the reaction would be what it is. And I think right now we're at a point where there are a lot of eyes on the American government. There are a lot of eyes on American leaders. Everyone around the world is, especially this upcoming weekend, election day is on Monday. I think a lot of people are looking at the US in terms of the free world, and we're under a microscope. And I think that it would send a very bad message at the end of the day if TikTok got banned and Trump entered into the presidency on January 19th, which is Monday. I think that would already be setting off like a bad foot in terms of what the world is going to look at and how the world is going to perceive the United States. And again, everyone has their different opinions in terms of politics. But I think from a political standpoint, the reason why Trump was put into office is because he is the leader that the free world wanted to have. And the free world wouldn't have accepted Kamala Harris if she was the president. And I don't think that's a conversation that a lot of people want to have. But I think in terms of how the US has been perceived within these past few years from a political standpoint, I think that they have decreased their perception of the US. And I don't think the US has had the perception, or we have not been perceived or been being respected by other global world leaders. And I think because of that, there's so many conflicts that have been going on, because the US really is like the leader, or we're the trendsetter of the what people would refer to as like the free world. So I just think from an economic standpoint, from a global perception standpoint, that TikTok isn't going to get banned for those reasons. And again, I'm saying this as someone who is willing to put this out here to be wrong, but I think we're at a really interesting point in terms of politics, in terms of media, in terms of what we allowed on a global scale. And I think a lot of everything comes down to perception. Whether we want to acknowledge that and recognize it as true or not is, again, up to our own opinion and our own understanding. But I think sometimes we forget that, for me, example, as an American living in the United States, the perception of our country matters, and the strength of the United States matters. And I think things are just a hot mess right now, and everyone is kind of like, what's going on in the US? I mean, we have fires that have been going on in California. It's like lions, tigers, and bears, oh my. We have just started off this month on what I would say like an insane foot. And I think our country is at a point where we are ready to turn a new leaf. Now, whether you are ecstatic for the new president or you are hurt from the new president, I think people are going to feel completely different ways, and I think that is okay. What isn't okay though is being mean and saying horrific things to people based off of who they did and did not vote on. When at the end of the day, again, yes, we have an election in the United States. Yes, at the end of the day, it's the electoral college that does pick the president. Who you vote in matters in terms of your senators, your House of Representatives. Actually, I'm not even going to go there. But again, I just think that there are so many eyes on the U.S. right now. And I definitely do think that is something that the Supreme Court justices are going to take into consideration when they do decide to make this decision. Again, nothing is final until the fat lady sings. Nothing is final until the call for the last round comes. So, with that being said, take a deep breath, drink your cup of coffee or your cup of tea, and remember that no matter what happens, we're all going to be okay. All right. Bye.